Okay, this is Module 10, Multicultural Law Enforcement, Terrorism and Homeland Security and Disaster Preparedness. Alright, our learning objectives for Chapter 10. In the book, we're going to describe the role that law enforcement plays in the war on terrorism, describe some specific collaborative responses, address the goals of Homeland Security, and talk about some local and state resources that might be available to you. Terrorism defined, this is very important, the terrorism definition is the unlawful use of force and violence against persons or property to intimidate or coerce a government or civilian population, or any segment thereof, in furtherance of political or social objectives. So I've got the highlighted words there. Force and violence to intimidate, coerce government or civilian population for political or social objectives. PETA, what does PETA do? People for Ethical Treatment of Animals. They throw blood on people that walk out of stores. Is that not violence? Is that not meant to intimidate them? Is that not meant to socially change the way they do business because they don't like fur? Yeah. PETA's by far a terrorist group. Some people won't agree with that. That's my personal opinion, and if you look at the definition, it is. Then you have your anti-government types. Sometimes they're called the radical right. A lot of them are militia groups, anti-government groups. They don't like the way that the government controls things. A lot of it has to do with guns and weapons and stuff. Sovereign citizens, they're not really organized. Sovereign citizens are they are an organized movement, but they don't organize into a lot of terrorist groups or a lot of what they call splinter cells. They do stuff on their own, but there's a lot of militia groups. If you look at the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995, Timothy McVeigh blew up the Murrah building in Oklahoma City. It was a federal building because he was protesting what the U.S. government did to the Branch Davidians back in 1993, and he didn't like the fact that they burned up the building there because these people had guns in the building. And when it was actually David Koresh that burned the building down, but Timothy McVeigh, he didn't believe that. He thought the government did it, and he was getting back. He became the largest mass murderer in United States history. Different causes: anti-abortion, anti-immigration. Anti-abortion, very well known for bombing abortion clinics and murdering doctors that do abortions. Anti-immigration folks, a lot of them use a terrorist type, the intimidation, the violence to do that. Not everybody that's anti-abortion is a terrorist, but there are segments of the anti-abortion movement, the anti-immigration movement that are terrorists. Hate groups, neo-Nazi groups, skinheads. There's a video I'll show about skinheads later on in the segment here. Remember, you as law enforcement officers, if that's the profession you get into, you're the first responder. So you're the one that's dealing with the attack. Recently they had the Boston Marathon bombing. That was last year, a year ago, couple months ago. And who were the first responders? The police department there. There's residual effects of weapons of mass destruction. If it's a dirty bomb, which is a bomb that contains radioactive materials, there could be a lot of collateral damage around there. Also secondary devices. Many times these abortion clinic bombings, they'll have a bomb go off, the police and fire get there to help rescue the people that are hurt, and then the second bomb goes off and hurts people. So be very, very careful of secondary devices. Some response strategies. It's the same thing as doing a criminal investigation and doing a terrorist investigation. You're looking for criminal behavior or behaviors that could lead to criminal. In the book, it talks about terrorist attack pre-incident indicators, some of the things they do. Go ahead and read the chapter, and there's some videos I show that talk about that. The FBI uses profiling, behavior recognition profiles, to detect criminals and terrorists. And again, apply your multicultural knowledge you've learned in this class, and you'll learn on the job when you get an in-service training into detecting people that are doing terrorist activities. Let me give you an example. I'm driving down the freeway. This is hypothetical. I stop a guy. He's got a pickup truck full of fertilizer. It's ammonium nitrate fertilizer. He's got about 40 bags of it in the back of his pickup truck. Just came from the Home Depot up in Ventura. I asked him what's going on. He says, I got a landscaping business, and I know a little bit about landscaping, and to use 40 bags, that's a lot of bags to use in the landscaping business. And in talking with him, I just don't think his story's quite right. But I have nothing to arrest him for, nothing to take him in for. But he's a suspicious guy. And then if you get into this business, I call it the things that make you go, That's a song from the 90s, things that make you go, This should raise the hair on the back of your neck. You're going, hey, something's wrong here. So take the guy's name down, do what's called an FI card, send it off to the Fusion Center, and I'll talk about Fusion Centers in a few minutes here. And send it off to the Fusion Center, and maybe they got his name on file. Maybe somebody stopped him last week in Riverside or San Diego or something doing the same thing, and maybe this guy's building a bomb out of this fertilizer. The bomb that blew up the Murrah building in Oklahoma City was a U-Haul truck full of ammonium nitrate and diesel fuel. They put together first responder plans. As you get into law enforcement, if that's what you get into, or if you get into emergency planning, either as a civilian or a uniformed side, you'll get more into the plans. In this class, we're not going to go deep into the plans, but if you take one of the Homeland Security classes that we teach here at El Camino College, there's three classes in the two in the fall and one in the spring that are opening up, and I think you'll really enjoy the stuff they have there. FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Association. You know what? The best thing to do for and this is a class on community relations, is to build the relationships with your community, because a lot of times they'll notice something that's out of the ordinary and they'll say, hey, this is going on. I think you need to know about this. And if there's an element of trust between you and the people out there, then you're going to have a better access to what's going on. The media can be your friend too. If you have some information, some intel about somebody doing something, they can put it out for you. Credible information. Make sure your information is credible. Don't start a panic. The more positive relationships you build up, the better chance you have of being more effective. And again, we talk a lot about this. If you're in a Spanish-speaking area, or a German-speaking area, or a Russian-speaking area, we have that up here in Sacramento, or Vietnamese down in Orange County. Make sure the broadcasts are in the languages so that people can understand them. Believe it or not, racial profiling is allowed under federal law to a certain extent to identify terrorists. And again, if you take the Homeland Security class, they'll talk more about that. Terrorists will do whatever it is they can to avoid being detected. One of the examples they provide in the book is the 9/11 terrorists. They went to strip clubs, they went out drinking to kind of throw the people that might be surveilling them off, because they're thinking, if these guys are strict Muslims, they're not going to be drinking and going to strip clubs. That's against their religion. And the use of terrorism, racial profiling, may cause you to overlook certain types of terrorists. When you get into law enforcement, you're going to do some training with ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and you'll train with them on how to respond to terrorist incidents, what to look for to help identify stuff for them. Again, they're in control of our borders. They want to make sure that the bad guys don't come in. That's one of the big issues behind the immigration debate going on right now. Again, this is summer 2014, immigration, huge debate right now. If you're not familiar with that, President Obama was in Texas just the other day talking about it. I've already talked a lot about this. The Major Cities Chiefs Association had some recommendations in combating terrorism. One of them, securing the borders. I mean, that's a no-brainer. You don't think that terrorists are sneaking in along with people from Central America that come across the border that are here looking for work? They are. Enforce the laws to prohibit hiring of illegal immigrants. Again, if they come here and they can work and send money back to their terrorist organization. Consulting and involving local police agencies in decision making. One of the things that went down with 9/11 is there were a lot of clues that these guys were doing the stuff they were doing. However, the clues didn't get to the right people. We call that information, and information that's made into something that makes sense is called intelligence. They had the information, but they didn't make intelligence out of it because they weren't in that mindset before 9/11. Make sure the agencies involved are participating. Create incentive-based approaches of full federal funding. I tell you, after 9/11, any kind of new equipment we needed, for the war on terrorism, whether it be better cameras, better weapons, better police cars, radios, and stuff like that, we got a lot of federal funding for that stuff. So, it's a good way to get the people on board, your law enforcement agencies on board. One of the things that happened after 9/11 was they passed the Patriot Act. 6 weeks after 9/11, they passed the USA Patriot Act. That's an acronym here. You see it says Uniting and Strengthening America by Providing Appropriate Tools Required to Intercept and Obstruct Terrorism. Somebody sat up all night thinking of that. Or they probably already had it beforehand. There's a video I show in there about 9/11 and the Patriot Act and some of the things that have to do with it. Some of the things the Patriot Act said that we can question, detain, and remove foreign terrorists from within our borders. We cannot remove domestic terrorists. Domestic terrorists is a genuine threat. People that are burning down labs and burning down housing projects and SUVs because they don't like gas guzzlers. Those are threats to our society. One of the things that the Patriot Act did is enhance surveillance methods to intercept communications. In other words, looking at your cell phones. Big in the news in the last 6 months or so about the NSA listening in on your phone calls. They claim they're not, but they do at least monitor who you're calling. Took away some of the powers of the Fourth Amendment. Remember from AJ 100, the Fourth Amendment had to do with search and seizure and the government looking into your stuff. It increased information sharing. I talked about that a few minutes ago. The feds, the states, the local law enforcement agencies are now communicating better. One of the programs that I personally did was a police executive fellowship with the FBI. And that was born out of 9/11 where the locals and the feds weren't talking together. So they put out these fellowships where we got to go back to FBI and learn how the feds did things and build relationships with the feds. That way, when we came back to California, we were able to communicate with the feds. Some local and state resources. In California, we have the State Threat Assessment Center. It's called the STAC. It's a fusion center. In other words, a fusion center means that information gathered all throughout the state goes up there, and they take that information and they pass on to the right authorities. You can call the STAC at any time if you're a law enforcement officer and run a name through there and see if it's somebody that a person of interest are looking for. On a side note, the former commander of the State Threat Assessment Center, STAC, is a former El Camino Administration Justice student. So somebody that's taking a class similar to the one you're taking right now went into law enforcement. I won't provide his name right now, but he went into law enforcement. He did very well for himself. He's now a captain of California Highway Patrol. That's who the leader of the STAC is the state law. We're the largest state law enforcement agency in California. And there's also local fusion centers throughout the state, and those are where local law enforcement like LAPD, San Diego Sheriff, Riverside Sheriff will get together and share information they have on state and local resources for terrorism.